Hi there, welcome to the podcast series, The Role of Coaching in HR. I'm Colin Newbold, and in this series I feature the backroom stars of HR. These are people officers in medium-sized organisations who are quietly making it easier for their employers to achieve success. Now, many of them will be new to you, and in each episode I invite them to share their story and some of the challenges they've overcome in their journey so far. Now, the series is sponsored by the coaching platform findmecoaches.com, and so I also get my guests talking about what coaching they may have received, how they've used coaching in their careers, and how coaching is being deployed inside their organisation. I really hope you enjoy it. Let the episode begin. Welcome to another edition of our podcast episodes. This one is the role of coaching in HR. And today I've got with me a lady called Jo Knowler, who is a really interesting character. I found her on LinkedIn, and I wanted, Jo, would you make yourself known to our audience in the way that someone who knows you well, perhaps a colleague, would introduce you?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Jo, and I am a person, and my friends always say this because I work for really cool companies and have a really boring job, which is very unflattering. I've worked with some amazing, well-known social media businesses. I've worked in the world of recruitment and HR, and obviously everyone finds that dull and boring. So that's how everyone knows me. I get people jobs is usually how they talk about me.
That sounds good. Okay, so describe how you got into this role. What's your career path so far?
So been in recruitment for over 15 years. Fell into it as all recruiters do. I think any recruitment you speak to will always say I fell into the job. I worked in fashion industry for a long time. Loved it. I think I'd always wanted to be in fashion. Never knew a recruiter was the way I'd get into that career. Especially because I can't draw or I'm not creative. And then I moved industries just pre-COVID, luckily. So moved into the media landscape. I've worked with social media businesses for the last 7 years now. I have to think about that one. I really enjoy my job, and my role has evolved into much more a HR and recruiter role. To be fair, I shouldn't use the word recruitment. It's talent acquisition, because it's much more than just hiring people now. It's kind of the retention side of things. It's, a candidate attraction. It's retention and keeping people and making sure they're happy in the job.
Yeah, I mean, I think employee retention is actually a bit of a sticky point right now, isn't it? I think certainly in terms of managers, that is the big holy grail at the moment. We're trying to get people to stay in their roles. What are some of the challenges that you've faced in your role, and how did you overcome them?
I've worked in startup landscape, so SMEs for the last kind of 6-7 years, and the type of personality that suits this industry is a bit of a unique one. I think this is where these weird and wonderful job titles have come from the last kind of 10 years, and I'm sure I've seen some interesting things like head of happiness and this unicorn and rock star, and I think people have had to make up these job titles to because the jobs didn't exist in the landscape in more traditional worlds, and things. The COVID really impacted a lot of employee branding and staff expectations. The hybrid model didn't even exist really in many places. It was very rare to come across a business that offered, home working or hot desking I can remember hot desking being such a big thing when I was looking for a job, 8 years ago, and being, oh wow, they're so progressive because they hot desk. And I just, it baffles me now, because the expectations of the younger generation and that age coming in that come in during the COVID time or post-COVID period, their expectations are just so high. And there's a very clear divide between, generations on what's expected of an employer and what you're expected as an employee to do. And I think that's our biggest, I don't know if it's issue or challenge is definitely at the moment, is trying to meet in the middle. And I feel my role very much, and I say this to my C-suite, I sit in the middle because I hear both sides and I understand both sides. But at the same time, it's not, I feel like I could just bang their heads together sometimes and saying, why are we arguing about this? Because there is a simple solution a lot of the times.
I mean, how would you describe this, the simple solution?
Compromise and make sure that everyone's happy with a middle ground. And that's the funny thing, because I think there's still very much, a lot of people that expect to be in the office and work closely together, and I completely see why that works. I witnessed it yesterday in the office. There was communication and conversations that just wouldn't happen if we were sat at home in our home offices or working remotely, and so that compromise of being in when it's relevant. So when meetings need to be had face to face, or you need to be collaborative, you need to be a creative environment and work together. I think that's really important to ensure that there's enough time in the week, each week, to make that happen in an office space in some capacity, and then obviously then also seeing that people are much more productive at home, and really recognizing and trusting the staff that the productivity does happen at home. We got a commute time, someone will probably end up working that commute time. We do find that we don't ask them to, but it happens, and we do get more done at home. So it's working that balance to really seeing certain roles work better at home than in the office, and just when we need to come together, really utilizing that time together to make sure it's not just a meeting for a meeting's sake. It is because we want to be together and work on something collaboratively.
Yeah, interesting. Have you noticed a shift in employees wanting to work more in the office than they did a year or two ago?
I think it's a case by case basis. Some people will say, oh yeah, I really need to be in the office for my own sanity. I think that's a really interesting thing. I think people really acknowledge now that isolation at home can really be really detrimental. I think if you've not got your mindset correctly, like I've taken a fully remote role before and I really embraced it and I really enjoyed it and I can do it, but that's because I knew what I was, I knew what I needed from that role, and it was vice versa. But it's making sure that you've got the right headspace. So there are people that will happily come into the office 5 days a week because they need that, because of whatever's going on in their outside world. They could be in a shared house. There might be 3 other people working in that house, which means that you can't concentrate, you can't get stuff done. But there'll be other people that just really want to get home and work at home and focus and get jobs done, because then there isn't the office noise around. So I would say there's still a real reluctance to come in 5 days a week across the board. I know that some businesses are kind of shifting back to 4 and 5 days, but there's a real reluctance from many, because we employ kind of 20 to 30-year-olds. Quite, that's our kind of our age range heavily. We've got older than that as well, but they are the ones that they're like, I really don't want to be in the office 5 days. So it's coming to a happy medium to what's suitable for everybody.
What's your organisation's position on this?
It's there. I'm sat bang in the middle of the teams going, oh yeah, we don't need to be in, and then C-suite saying, oh no, we need to be in. And that's where I see both sides. I think we do at the moment 3 days a week in the office, in the London office and the Manchester office. I think that works, but I think there is that not everybody always sticks to the 3 days. So there's always questioning of are people really committed to the 3 days? And we've only got a small team in the office, so it's really highlighted when somebody isn't in, because there is that numbers. Everyone sat around a big desk. If they're not in, that there's a person missing, and it feels like there's less people in there. So yeah, I think it can be better both ways. I think there could be more commitment from the employees to come in. I think there should, the management should also go, okay, it's not going to work every day, because that we have train issues, we have all sorts. Luckily we don't have any train strikes anymore. That would have been a real hit like it used to, but there's always there's sensible reasons for people not to be in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a trust issue as well. So some organisations are more trusting of their employees than others. But yeah, it seems that the issue was highlighted by COVID, but it's beginning, I think, to relax a bit. there's more flexibility on behalf of employers and employees. Actually, I say this because my partner works in recruitment. She works in EA or PA recruitment, and she's noticed a trend of employers wanting them to be more in the office than they did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And as you rightly say, it's not for everyone home working. There has to be a compromise, a balance. Okay, so look, that this coaching platform, Find Me Coaches, is the sponsor of the podcast. I'd like to ask you, what's your experience of coaching, both personally, for yourself, but as well inside your organisation?
Personally, I have a number of coaches actually. I think my life got complicated when I threw a baby into the mix, and always being very careers focused, and that I have goal setting and determination is always my driver. So I had to bring in a personal coach to help with kind of physical and mental health and just really get me on track with that side of things. And then for me, it's more accountability rather than actually. I like to educate myself in certain areas, so I understand about nutrition and fitness and stuff like that. But it's the accountability thing that I've really benefit a coach. On a kind of career level, like I've had more a mentor than a coach, and I have tried coaches in certain times. So whether I'm going through a really difficult project or a complex situation with employees, it might be that I kind of require a coach, and we'll go find a coach for that specific need. And for me, I'm very pro coaches. The teams, I think some of my managers, I've instructed managers in the past to have coaches, again, to kind of help their development. I think for me, it's about finding the right one. I think you have to really be able to, a bit like having a relationship with an EA or a PA, that bond and that relationship needs to be really, really tight for it to be successful. I think if you don't have the same understanding of the career that you're doing, or your morals or your passion, it doesn't always work. So I think you have to kiss a lot of frogs sometimes, but I think also that can be really interesting. And when I've tested coaches before, having a couple of hours with them and just talking over one solution, just seeing if they really get how I think, is really beneficial to them building a long-term relationship. But yeah, very, very pro coaching. I think it can be really, really beneficial for those sticky points in your career or in your life, or just development.
You've described some of the benefits of coaching in a corporate setting, coaching culture. What do you see as the benefits?
I think the person has to be really receptive to it. I think if they're not willing to be coached, it won't go anywhere. So this is why I never force a coaching scenario. I think that line manager or that person needs to really want to do it and want to evolve and develop them personally, because I think otherwise it genuinely can be a waste of money, because if they don't listen and don't start executing those actions or those, that training, it doesn't work. I think people that are, stepping up into their first layers of management, that's the best time to get a coach, because you haven't been there and done it all as a manager yet. You've not had a tricky conversation, or you've not, dealt with a really obscure situation. And rather than just floundering and just going, I'm really out, I don't really know what I'm doing, and not knowing who to ask, having a coach to just talk it through and have that years of experience sometimes, I think is really beneficial. I think I've always had coaches generally of an older than me, so that I feel like they've got more wealth of knowledge and experience. They've probably been there, done that. Whereas, and I'd love to coach, a junior recruiter, so that they can, because I'll have done those, I would have made those mistakes, I've faced those challenges, and I think that's what you can get from someone who's, in a way, been there, done that, seen it all. And I think that's really beneficial for someone that's stepping into their kind of early management side of things, or just progressing in their career in a way that, I think my always thing with coaches, you don't know what you don't know. So coach can come in and go, oh, but you've never even explored this before.
Yeah, That's so good. It's interesting, this idea about coachability, coaching readiness. We've introduced a 2-minute quiz on our website that asks people to just check out their readiness for
Yeah.
coaching. It's quite interesting, the results we're getting, the scores we're getting. I think pretty much everyone is coachable, but
If they're
the
doing
right
that quiz,
coach
you would
needs to be.
think that they were open to it. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be doing that quiz, would they? Like
Yeah,
they're
exactly,
probably
exactly.
they are exploring this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also, you mentioned the point about newly appointed managers, people who suddenly are thrust into a leadership role and not feeling comfortable to do that. They're kind of out of their depth. And that, I think, is a growing area for coach, especially in younger organizations like yours, I guess, which is a relatively new organization. Would that be correct? How old is the organization?
Well, we started as an influencer brand, so they've been creating content since 2017, but we've only evolved
Yeah.
into actually kind of a media publisher for the last 18 months, 2 years. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're relatively new. I mean, there are obviously other businesses that are popping up all the time, but yeah, still new and still learning for sure.
Are you growing as a business?
Yeah, we launched a luxury car auction site in April, so a whole new arm to the business, which is incredible. So yeah, we're growing in kind of different ways as well as just our bread and butter as well.
Okay, good for you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if you had a Harry Potter magic wand,
Yeah.
what would you like to see happening in human resources that isn't happening currently, Joe?
This one's a really hard one for me because I'm so new to actually sitting in the HR seat. As a talent acquisition and recruiter, you sit alongside them all the time. I think an understanding of the wider business of how much HR are involved with and what they do would be my magic wand. I'd love, in a way, for everyone to have a bit of a synopsis of my day, see my diary, see what's going on, because I think the expectations, and whether that's maybe because I haven't got an SLA in place, because we are not, a big enough business to warrant that, it's to really think, do I need HR for this? Could I do this on my own? And I suppose for me, it would be people to, in a way, sometimes see that the grass isn't always greener before they jump. I think, again, I've made that mistake personally in my career, has gone, oh, they look like they're having a lot of fun, I want to go and do that. And I've left a really nice, stable job and gone into something that was just, not what I should have been doing. And I think, again, that's the education pieces of people thinking everything looks glamorous on the outside with this shiny world that we live in, where everything is, Instagrammable, it's all picture perfect and everyone's living their best life, but then really getting into the weeds and finding out what's really going on in the business before making that jump. And I think that's something that a good recruiter, especially agency type recruiter, can really help with, and really say, there is this area of concern in this business, or this is the underlying trend, or this is what, are you ready to go into this new challenge? And some of those challenges are something somebody really wants. But then sometimes if there's not that transparency, I think that's a kind of pulling the wool over someone's eyes, and the grass is not greener for that certain person.
Okay. And when you mentioned C-suite earlier, are you actually on the board?
I'm not. No. So I report to C-suite.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, how much of a voice do you feel you have with them?
I'm very, very fortunate that I generally am heard. Like, they come to me for my opinion and my thoughts, and they listen. There is obviously always a business case sometimes to do something different from what I suggest. But yeah, I have regular meetings with our founders, and I have one-to-ones with all our C-suite as and when they need them, but also just the projects that leave me to get on with stuff that I can lead. So yeah, I'm very lucky to have that voice. I think, I don't know if, obviously, again, this is the most senior role that I have had in my career. And I do feel like I'm very lucky. I'm not sure that if it was in another business, my voice would be as loud as it is. I think sometimes maybe it's too loud, and sometimes they need to just help me to pipe down.
Okay. Well, that's great news. I mean, the strategic role of HR, I think, is becoming more and more. It's more and more common, but it's still missing in some organisations. But maybe because yours is a younger one, and everyone in that organisation is learning together. Maybe that's one of the reasons why you get more involved in that.
I think I've been lucky actually. My previous bosses have set the tone for me. Like I've worked with HR directors who have been very, very close with the board and have been very impactful. So maybe my expectations were set by them, and so I'm just leading how I was taught to lead.
Yeah, good point. Okay, and in terms of talent retention, would you see coaching, the availability of coaching to staff as being one of the ways in which you keep people?
100%. Like the people that are just coming into the industry or have been in the industry for a couple of years, they want to be able to develop and grow. They want to see performance plans. They want to see competency packs. This is all the projects I'm working on at the moment. They want to know what their next goal is and what do they do to earn more money. Like I suppose that's the one of the biggest factors for them is like, what do I do to get to that next step up? How do I achieve it? So if we're able to say like, great, I can coach you, I can do a development plan for you, that's really nice. But if they want to do it, they might want to do it on their own back. They might want to prove, they might not be seen by their current manager as being that next promotion. So actually they might go get a coach and develop so that they can get the next role elsewhere. I think that's what a lot of people are doing. If they're not being I think so that's the whole retention side of things. If we're not nurturing them, they'll go somewhere else and be nurtured.
Yeah, that's the worry, isn't it? In your organisation, is it possible to earn more money without necessarily going into management roles?
Funny enough, we had exactly that conversation yesterday. I'm a very big believer that you shouldn't always be promoted into managing people. Again, maybe that's from that recruitment side. There's some really excellent recruiters I've worked with that bill really well. They're not people managers. They're just, and I've seen it in sales teams before, promote someone to being a group head role. They're very, very good at their job. Doesn't mean that they can want to look after a team. They can do it as a mentoring way rather than a managing way. And I think definitely a clear trajectory for a lot of roles that doesn't involve people underneath you. And I think that's something that maybe has evolved in the last 5-6 years to actually, there's a career path that goes for people that just are very good at doing that, what they need to do.
Role model type of role rather than necessarily a manager. Yeah. In fact, funnily enough, you described it with your hands as a kind of like a Y shape. And when I was first in the corporate world, I was a medical rep years and years and years ago, too long to remember. But I do remember the Y-shaped career progression scheme, which allowed you to progress in either a role model, sort of subject matter expert, or a manager. And I chose management, but I could have gone the other way. My motivation was to get a better car, really.
I mean, you're all talking my language there. Yeah, I'm the same. Get a better car.
But it turned into my vocation, really. I think that's what drove me to start a sort of human resources business, a leadership management business, management training business back in the early 90s. And of course, FMC has evolved out of all the coaches that we've come across during those years. But anyway, look, thank you so much, Joe, for the time you've given me. Really appreciate your inputs, and I wish you ever so well with your career. It sounds fantastic. I'd love to be in a young company. I don't have that opportunity now, but it's great to interview people who are. So thank you for making a difference where you are.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed that insight into my guest and their organisation and the role of coaching there. Now, the series is sponsored by the coaching platform findmecoaches.com. And if you want to find out more about how you can access our community of coaches, then I invite you to check out our website at www.findmecoaches.com. Or you can email info@findmecoaches.com. Or why not call us on +44 if you're outside the UK, and then 0203 988 6666. Thanks for watching.